There are two different types of exclusion. So fixed term exclusion would be when there's been an incident at the school and the child has been excluded for a fixed term, an amount of time. So it might be 5 days, it might be 3 days, but they're going to go back into school and they're going to be reintegrated back into school. So usually they get a fixed term exclusion, they're sent home, and sometimes the fixed term exclusion can take place in the school, but they're not in class, they're isolated, so it just depends on the school policy. And then they'll have a reintegration meeting and the child will go back into class and back into their normal routine. A permanent exclusion is when the school decides that the children are no longer going to attend the school, they're finished there, and therefore they need to leave the school and another provision needs to be looked for. Looked after children are more likely to be excluded from school or to have fixed term exclusions, and it's very unfortunate. But when we think about school and the expectation of school, it's really challenging for our young people. You know, they've come from all different situations and most of them have come from very traumatic situations, and then they go to school and they have to fit into social norms, they have to fit into structure, there's very high expectations, it can be very overwhelming for them. They need to kind of follow boundaries and structure that they might not have necessarily had in their early years or in their life. They might have come from several different placements or several different schools, and they're now expected to go into a setting and make new friends, make positive relationships and trust people that they've never met before. So we have very high expectations of our young people when they enter into an education setting. And if the support is not in place in their education setting, whether it be a specialist school or an alternative provision or a mainstream school, they're going to find that quite challenging, because behaviour is always something that there's a cause and there's a reason for. So if there's not a therapeutic approach and there's not someone supporting that young person and thinking about what might be going on inside their head, what kind of weekend they had previously, when they had contact or they didn't have contact, you know, there's a lot going on for them, and they've got to deal with that as well as the expectations of academic expectations, social peers expectations. So it's quite a challenging environment, and without the right support in place, it's tough. So you can definitely appeal an exclusion. You can appeal if you feel that the exclusion has been completely unfair, if it's because it's due to discrimination or they've made a mistake, if it's under mitigating circumstances, for example, the young person's been through a bereavement and the school don't understand, or there's something going on that the school don't know about, then you can definitely appeal. You should make the appeal in writing and you should direct it to the Board of Governors, and then you should be invited to a review after some time. It might be 15 days, it's very different depending on the school. And during that review, the Chair of Governors will be there and other professionals. It's really important that the virtual school attend, also that the corporate parent, the social worker attends, and you bring evidence of the reason why you feel that exclusion has been made wrongly, so that you have lots of evidence to prove that that shouldn't have happened. That might be the child's voice, that might be just your facts that you have of things that have happened, things that you've compiled, and that's really important to bring that to that review. If you have that review and the exclusion is still unsuccessful, then you can contact the Academy Trust or the local authority with another appeal. But it's very different for different authorities and different schools. So if it's a fixed term exclusion, then the school should be providing the foster parent with work that they can do at home. It is important that the young person does have a balance of understanding that they are still should be working at home, and that it's not a holiday, it's not a time where they get to watch telly all day or play video games. There still needs to be some kind of element of them trying to do and engage with their schoolwork, and this can be really, really challenging for a foster parent because it can be an emotional time, so it's understanding how to approach that. So it might not be a case of telling your young person, sit down and do all that work today, because that will kind of make them not do anything or not want to engage at all. It's trying to support them with the work that they need to do, giving them enough space, And again, giving them that reflection time. The foster parent has the biggest role in kind of supporting that child when they've been excluded, because an exclusion is going to, make that child feel lots of various emotions. And so the foster parent kind of needs to use that time to listen to the child, make them feel validated, think about, what happened, and support them to reflect on the situation that happened at school. The child might be able to reflect and understand that, they didn't make a good choice. But when they are at home, that is a safe space for them. And so that is a time for them to think about possibly how they could have made a better choice, or what led to those choices that they made. And if the foster parent is able to see that there are underlying causes for the behaviour, then that's the point where they need to communicate with other professionals, because that's the point where if everyone understands what's going on behind the behaviour, everyone can step in and support and stop it reoccurring, or stop them going back into school and having another incident. So communication with everybody is really key. Lots of young people feel really shamed when they've had an exclusion. They feel really embarrassed, and they feel that they're not good enough, and they feel that no one wants them. Although they've made a mistake and they might have made a wrong choice, they need to know that someone is still on their side, and that's where the foster parent can come in and be there for them. I think when a child is permanently excluded, then foster parents and advisory teachers and virtual school all need to work together to make sure that that child can transition into either a different school. It might be an alternative provision, it might be a PRU, it might be a setting that is specifically suited for that child. But the sooner that happens, the better, and that will take some time, but everyone needs to work together to make that happen. And it's important that, we find the right school for the child, because just jumping from one school to another is just going to be a continuous kind of event, which we don't want for that young person. We want to look at the needs of that young person and see if there's a setting that can kind of support them the best way possible. So I think how ISP support foster parents when the child's been excluded from school is just being there for them. I think it can be quite overwhelming when they've got a young person that was in school and suddenly they're not in school. They might not want to engage in the work that the school are giving them. So sometimes it's just having that support and someone that you can talk to understand that things aren't always going to go the way you want them to be. That both the foster parent and the young person might need some time out, and they might need, just some space to reflect, to think, and to be creative. So when they're not in school, it's sometimes a good opportunity for the young person and the foster parent just to have a chat and have a conversation and talk about what's been going on for them and what those challenges are and what those barriers are that they're facing every day. It is sometimes our expectation that a young person that's been excluded from school goes into the home setting and that they just carry on as normal and they do their work, but it can be quite traumatic, so they're going to need a lot of time to reflect. And I think we encourage our foster parents to spend quality time with their young people, to go for walks, to support them with their interests. And as I said earlier, even though they might not have made a good choice in school, it's important that they draw a line under that and they think of it as a fresh start and a new time to kind of make positive choices and to go forward and to put maybe the bad choices behind and to think about, what support that they need, what support the young person needs. And as advisory teachers, we need to support the foster parents with what they need, because it is quite an intense job, and understanding that they're going to need some space and to think therapeutically is what we're here for.